Hey Goldies, how y'all doing? Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me today. I only have about an hour, a little less than an hour, to spend on this video right now. I'm gonna try to come back after I get some things settled and and have a panel discussion. All right. So maybe we can have some conversation. I have so many different videos planned today. I have to respond to the Lapeef interview. I hope you guys got a chance to check that out. And there are some other things that I want to get out here. Okay. Today, I don't want to push it off to tomorrow. So hopefully today I can get all of this stuff in. So y'all might see me quite a bit today. But I wanted to, right, Gigi, my goodness. I wanted to take some time after that interview. Yes, it wasn't yesterday. It was Wednesday. It was Tuesday. I wanted to take some time after that interview on Tuesday. Y'all let me know if that lawnmower out there is bothering y'all. I wanted to take some time after the interview on Tuesday and really kind of reframe everything that's going on right now. It seems as if we are kind of losing sight of the point behind the petition and, you know, the conversation regarding what's going on. And I want us to just refocus and recenter, okay? One of the videos that I do next, girl, very disturbing. And you know what? Hey Joe, when we talked about social abuse in a few videos last week, or was it earlier this week? I don't know, whenever that was, when we talked about social abuse, these people who are supporting Slickback, hey S. Brown, these people who are supporting Slickback don't understand how innately abusive they are. And that whole like panel Lapeef thingy was just an example of social abuse, and we've been talking about it. All right. And yeah, thank you for reminding us, Kevin's defense. We have a video coming up on this winter is coming thing. You know, Black women, we have been enjoying a winter, you know, every year of our lives. So I don't know why we need to be scared that winter is coming or rush out and like grab a dusty because winter is coming when, you know, like we prepare for the winter, just like we made it through the pandemic. Please don't let anybody with this crazy propaganda make you feel like you need to go out here and just grab the first dusty you see. All right. There is a process, and I'll get more into this process soon, and how you can really vet a guy and really determine if he's worth your time. You don't have to run out here and just grab somebody just because it's about to get cold outside. All right. Because as soon as it warm back up, y'all know how they do. They put on them gray jogging pants and get right back outside. Okay. So don't let Slickback scare y'all with that propaganda. But so we're gonna do a video on the winter is coming. Hey, she, and girl, you know, Verbal, the thing is like, why do they keep talking? Why do they keep talking? And so aside from the video on that, we also have to catch up on Dr. Dre. I'm so behind. And another video that I want to have is that it is, you know, why can't we have this conversation, Black women? Why can't we have this conversation without Black men chiming in and all of their supporters like Love over here, all of their supporters chiming in and making it about Black men? When we talk about the statistic, I really only need one statistic, and that's the fact that a Black woman is killed by a Black man every 21 hours. I mean, once we get that statistic out there, we really don't have anything else to talk about. But if we want to continue talking, we can mention more. But that says it all right there. Once that's stated, that needs to be addressed. And Black men and the women who protect them, like Love, need to allow that conversation to take place. like conflating the issues and deflecting and pointing fingers, and these men popping up hollering about me too, me too, me too, really still doesn't speak to the point, and doesn't speak to the statistic at hand, and doesn't give them an opportunity to be held accountable for what is going on, right? We all know what's going on, and it's just this is just deflection, and those who are perpetuating those talking points are just making, themselves look bad, and just really showing how immature they are, because they won't allow Black women to have this conversation. They want Black women to be silent on our reality, and it's just supremely unfair. Hold on, I'm gonna close this window because I think that lawnmower is kind of loud. Hold on. Okay, so they just won't allow us to have this conversation without switching it and, popping up with their me too billboards saying, oh, me too, I was abused too, we're abused too. And the domestic abuse rates against men are concerning, and that's something that we need to talk about, and it definitely needs to be discussed, and I can commit to holding that discussion here on this channel. However, at this moment, the conversation is about what's going on with Black women. Before the petition was made public, Black men weren't talking about domestic violence and domestic abuse and those rates against them. They were not speaking about that whatsoever. But now that we have a public platform and the conversation is moving forward, they want to make everything about them. And again, that goes to the oppression, I guess that's the only word I can use, that we face towards really trying, or the resistance, I'll say that, the resistance that we face towards trying to improve daily life for, all of us in our community, but Black women specifically. All right. So okay, we can talk about the high domestic violence rate amongst lesbians, but again, like I said, that is more deflection. We're talking about men to women right now. That's what the conversation is on. Once we have that conversation, once y'all allow that conversation to happen, then we can break out into all of the other pieces of it. But to continue trying to overtalk the messenger, overtalk the person who has the microphone at the moment, and keep saying, but what about this? But what about that? It's just showing your immaturity. If the domestic violence happening against Black women perpetuated by Black men is not an issue, then you guys will allow us to have the conversation. And once the conversation concludes, then we'll begin addressing whatever your concerns were. But the fact that you guys won't allow the conversation to take place just shows the desire for women to remain in these abusive cycles, or to continue to allow that abuse to be perpetuated against us, just because you don't want us to speak out about it. All right. And you know what? I'm gonna cam up. Let's see. I have other videos with my face on there, so I don't even have to worry about camming up, because I have cammed up so many times before. But whatever. Yeah, they do that to run an interference and derail the conversation. Yeah, and you know what? Thank you so much, Gigi, and for everybody else that encouraged me not to go on the interview, because I really did want to go on the interview and I really did want to speak. But thank you for encouraging me not to go. It was a few people in my inner circle who encouraged me not to go, and I appreciate y'all. We have some big things in the mix regarding this whole petition thing. Some people have reached out and like they want to support, and I have my girlfriend that's been kind of keeping me posted on everything. She's in South Korea, and we just have like a network of people all across the country and the world even, that are interested in kind of helping us get the message out there. So thank you, you guys, for encouraging me not to go on, because it would have been pointless. It just would have been pointless. And, to be honest, the conversation that was had wasn't a good look. I mean, at one point in the conversation, I have to finish my notes because I am going to do a formal response video to the interview. But there was just a lot of mudslinging, talking about my age, wondering if I'm really married. At one point in time, someone alluded to the fact that that I have a mental illness. Like just really derailing the conversation and deflection. Never once speaking to the fact that women are murdered by men, by black men. Black women are murdered by black men once every 21 hours. And every time I say that, someone is like, "Oh, here we go with the 21 hours. Oh, we got to talk about 21 hours again." They keep talking about 21 hours. It's significant. Like, it is significant, and you can't get away from that. So, like, why would you want to deflect from that? All right, girl, talk about ghetto. Okay, I know struggle when I see it. Okay, somebody want to, girl, I'm gonna save it. Okay, but I know struggle braids when I see them. Okay, anyway, let's go. So currently the petition is at 18,000. Y'all, yesterday morning we had about 17,000 signatures. I want to say like maybe 17,300 maybe, but today we are at 18,019 signatures. All right. So the petition is continuing to move forward. I'm contemplating doing like some media or whatever. But like, y'all know that I was not prepared for how this thing took off. I just wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared. And I'm so surprised that other people also feel the same way and support the mission and want to help, make some progress. And I want to honor all of those supporters. I want to honor all of those people who also feel compelled to speak out about this violence that's happening against women and how it's been promoted. Okay, so anyway, let's keep going. We are going to get into the video. Let me see. What am I sharing? I've been sharing that comment that whole time. I'm sorry, y'all. I thought y'all was looking at me that whole time. But anyway, while we were having a conversation about domestic abuse yesterday in the manosphere space, if y'all did see that comment, y'all let me know if y'all saw that comment. But if y'all did see that comment, those were some of the comments that were being said, right? The messenger is Kevin. He is spreading the message, but when I talk about the people in the community that are actually taking those words and making day-to-day life unsafe, that's what I meant. I don't know if y'all could read those comments. Let me see if I can read it out loud. Let me see, is it this one? Oh yeah, but yesterday in a conversation about domestic abuse on a live stream, one person said, if a woman can't get it right and become a homemaker, then make it your business to send her back to her maker. And I ain't talking about her mama. And we know what that means, right? So when we talk about threats of violence, that's exactly what we're talking about. All right. And then this one is just a sick comment. DV is only funny when you hear it from a house you don't know the owners of. Them screams are distinct. Can y'all imagine listening to your neighbor being like beat up and hearing her screams for help and stuff like that, and like you think it's funny, you know what I'm saying, like it's a popcorn moment? Like, can you imagine that? And just the the way those who support Kevin Samuels are so okay with that reality for so many women who could feel trapped. Hey, woke, who could feel trapped. It's so disheartening, and they don't even understand how sick that pathology is, and it's just shocking. Hey, Netta Jean. Hey, Greta. Yeah, and that's the thing. Greta, like there's a lot of, I was talking about the winter is coming thing. There's a lot of propaganda aimed to push women to just choose a man. But once you are like in that marriage and stuff, you in the house with that door locked, it's just you and him, you better make sure that you chose wisely. You know, ain't no such thing as the winter coming. And in the interview with the two ladies, they kept saying stuff like, you don't have a lot of time, you're running out of time. And to be honest, you know, what is for you is for you. Okay. Like you never need to act from a position of desperation as to where you just need to go out here and take the first man that smiles at you. You know, there's a belief in that community that women aren't the prize. Women aren't the prize, and I'm not going to say that women are better than men or they're the prize, but a good woman is a treasure, and a good woman is something to be honored, and a good woman can improve a man's life in so many different ways. And this status as a good woman is not contingent upon your age or how many children you have or looking good or what's your dress size. Those are all extras that come with it. When you really connect with a man in a real sincere way, in a way that improves his life, it really has very little to do with how you look, and more so how you make him feel, you know, and how he's able to now become a much better, or to show the best of himself and work from the best of himself. Okay, so anyway, I'm sick of it too, girl. But y'all would be surprised at how many men are sick of it too, because so many men have been sending me messages and inboxes and like just sharing how, you know, they are so disappointed in that conversation. Like men are fed up too. The good men are fed up too. Okay. But you know, it's really difficult to speak out about it, because if you are contrarian, then everybody want to call you a hater. They want to accuse you of clout chasing, or, you know, gang up on you because I guess everybody just wants to accept mediocrity. You know, that's just the way I see it. But anyway, let me get into this real quick. So the exact moment, let's go. Okay, y'all let me know if y'all can hear this video once it starts.
Hey Kev, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jr.
Hey Kev, I got a question. Before you hopped on, we was talking about the woman's tongue and exact.
Okay, wait, before we go, I know that y'all can hear it. Before we go, do y'all want to play the whole video and then I break down where he advocated for domestic violence, or do y'all want me to stop it after they at each point to show you how we got to where we are? Which one? Let me know in the chat. Play the whole thing first? Okay. So I'm going to play the whole thing first, and then I'm going to go back and point out the minute markers, okay? I'm so shocked that a lot of people don't know what they are hearing when they are listening to something. But let's do it. Yes, let's get that one sub, okay? So we can get to 600. And that's another thing that I have to mention. Well, I'm going to save it for the interview recap video, okay?
Example that I used was my sister just having no respect for the man. And I talked about how men do not have to give respect in order to receive respect, that men should just give respect off GP. And I was just kind of just blown because like my sister felt the need that she not only tried to disrespect me, but when my grandfather was in the house and said he didn't want no yelling in the house, she just totally disregarded him. Mm-hmm. And my concern is that even in marriages, the relationships, and just even as strangers, that women feel that it's okay to disrespect a man. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna use it a couple of ways and tie it into something I heard earlier. If we can't hold anybody accountable that we are directly tied to, we can't have a community. That's a you used to get a whooping by Mr. Brown if Mr. Brown saw you doing something wrong because you were accountable to the community, not just your mama and daddy. When you leave that sitting right there. The women don't today don't fear what Sean Connery told Barbara Walters. There are times when the best course of action is to slap a woman. That's what Sean Connery said. It's still on YouTube right now. Go look at it. And Barbara Walters was like, thought he was going to recant his statement, and he doubled down. He said, let me explain what I mean. He's like, women have a way of not knowing how to let things go. You can give up the argument. You can let it go. They can know they've won. There's nothing else to be gained, and they will continue to push and push and push. And he said, at that point, once you've exhausted all other options, then a slap becomes a good option. And you only have to do it once. Shahrazad Ali tried to say that stuff, and it set the black community on fire. Why is this? Because between the men on this platform right now, if we were in public, we have to moderate what we say, whether we know each other or not, because there's a low-level threat of violence and aggression between all men. Fuck YouTube, fuck degrees, fuck money. You cross a certain line with a man, we're gonna have to shoot the fair one. We know that. You can be in a wheelchair, you can be on a crutch, whatever. You can be special. You got to do that. But see, there's no low-level threat of violence between women and men today. Women are allowed to be verbally disrespectful beyond the point of reason because there's no consequence, because they don't fear the repercussion. So listening to that, and this is why anybody familiar with the concept of domestic discipline?
No,
domestic discipline in a nutshell is me and Courtney are married. And Courtney and I are vibing. But Courtney knows that she can get on one sometimes. And we sit down and say, when you get on one, and after we go through the process, and I use the safe word, banana split, and you still stay on one after I say banana split. You heard me say banana split. I acknowledge you heard me say banana split, and you stay on one. Well, then it's time for the domestic discipline. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Lay across the knee and on her ass. Thank you. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. And what I will do is I will put the links to the women who teach this stuff. And this has been talked about in sectors of the manosphere. It's adult correction.
I've never heard of that before in my entire life.
I hadn't heard of it until I got here on YouTube, but I'd heard of the concept, but I didn't hear it that way. And the thing is, it doesn't, and it's nonviolent. And here's the point. Can you imagine being a grown woman and you got to hear banana split, and you know you should have stopped, and you kept on going, and then you volunteer, and the woman has to volunteer for this. She volunteers to do this. It's not coerced, and it doesn't rise to the point of respect. Lay down, get the paddle out. All right, now, Courtney, you know, banana split, and you just think of the psychological thing. Like, I am 34 years old, and I'm having to get swatted or hit with my hand. And who teaches this? Women teach other women. What was that woman's name? I'm gonna put her name down in the comment section, and I want you guys to understand the spirit in which you're saying, because this can get really misinterpreted.
Yeah, we get you. We adults.
But the thing is, the notion is that women know that the power of life and death resides in the tongue, and you use that instead of using it for our benefit, turning it against your men to the point to where you should not have to fear the venom that's potentially in the tongue of your women. Your enemy should have to fear that, not the men who share your crest.
Than men, than women.
Okay, so can anybody in the chat tell me where the promotion of domestic violence, domestic abuse happened? Can anybody in the chat tell me where the conversation turned to domestic discipline? Or is this entire conversation about domestic discipline and not domestic violence or domestic abuse? If y'all want me to keep going now, just keep going. On one, okay? When we said on one, all right? As soon as she explained how to do it, okay? All right, it's domestic violence. Thank you, sweetie. See, how can I say it? Because I don't want to offend anybody. But if you know, you know, okay? If you know, you know, and you know what you hear, all right? Let me go back and we are going to, and she didn't stay quiet, okay? Let's go back and we are going to go piece by piece, all right? And I'm going to stop it where we need.
Go ahead, JR.
Hey Kev, I got a question. Before you hopped on, we was talking about the woman's tongue. An example that I used was my sister just having no respect for the man. And I talked about how men do not have to give respect in order to receive respect, that men should just give respect off GP. And I was just kind of just blown because like my sister felt the need that she not only tried to disrespect me, but when my grandfather was in the house and said he didn't want no yelling in the house, she just totally disregarded him. And my concern is that even in marriages, the relationships, and just even as strangers, that women feel that it's okay to disrespect the man. Can you speak on that?
Yeah,
Okay, so here the speaker asked Kevin, he had a concern that he wanted Kevin to address. And his concern was that women feel it's okay to disrespect a man. Okay? He wanted Kevin to speak to the fact that women feel it's okay to disrespect a man. Okay? So Kevin said that he's going to address it. Okay? So let's listen to Kevin begin addressing the concern of women feel it's okay to verbally. Let me insert that piece because I'm going to do some more videos in a minute. And it's important that you guys remember this vocabulary that's used, okay? That the concern is that women feel it's okay to verbally disrespect a man, okay? Using only words, okay? Using only words, okay? Women feel it's okay to disrespect a man using their words. That's the concern, and that's what they want Kevin to talk about.
I'm gonna use it a couple of ways and tie it into something I heard earlier. If we can't hold anybody accountable that we are directly tied to, we can't have a community.
Okay. So the first thing Kevin said is if we can't hold anybody accountable, all right? So what Kevin is wanting to look for is accountability. What he's speaking to is accountability in using verbal words disrespectfully against a man, okay? Verbal words. Well, I guess it could be written words, okay? So speaking verbally, disrespectfully against a man, okay? Kevin feels that we need to hold women accountable. Okay, that's a vocabulary word, class. Okay, accountable for using verbally disrespectful words against a man. Hold on.
You used to get a whooping by Mr. Brown, and Mr. Brown saw you doing something wrong because you were accountable to the community, not just your mama and daddy. When you leave that sitting right there. The women today don't fear what Sean Connery told Barbara Walters.
Okay. Let's pause right there. He says that the women today don't fear what Sean Connery told Barbara Walters. Okay. He's going to go into using Sean Connery's words, aligning with Sean Connery's thoughts in this moment regarding being held accountable. Okay. He says that women don't fear the words that Sean Connery speaks. Okay. Now, this is one of the problems with dating much older men or having a relationship with a much older man, is that an older man can speak from a position that you really don't know much about. Most of us don't know much about Sean Connery. Okay, I know I didn't. So we can accept examples from these older men because they know what they're talking about in regards to that example, but we don't know what they are talking about in regards to that example because they lived during that time, and for us that was old people stuff. Okay, we didn't know about Sean Connery and his history, but this old person did. So this old person mentioned it, drawing back on it as like a historical reference, but you don't know anything about what that historical reference is. Okay, so in order to provide context, okay, I'm going to instead of Sean Connery, I'll use a name like Ike Turner. Okay, we know who Ike Turner is and we know about Ike Turner's history. Okay, so next I'm going to play Sean Connery's words that Kevin mentioned and Kevin aligned himself with when he was speaking in terms of holding women accountable for being disrespectful, verbally disrespectful to men. Okay, so instead of thinking of Sean Connery, think of Ike Turner and his history. Okay, all right. I'm going to have to, you know what? I'm going to skip ahead and play Sean Connery's words and then I'm going to come back, okay? So let me see. Where do we have Sean Connery? We are at 147. Okay. So now he says, women don't fear what Sean Connery said. And now let's hear what Sean Connery said.
And than women.
Years ago, you did an interview, which may come back to haunt you. You know what I'm going to say, right?
No.
Okay. You did an interview in which you said, not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist. It's better to do it with an open hand. Mm. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good. I
think it's bad.
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They don't want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
To give her a good slap?
Yeah, absolutely.
What if she gives you a good slap back?
Well, then you get into another area. I mean, then maybe she's getting to like it, then it becomes something else. I don't know. But seriously, I think that it's the last resort. He's not going to do it because he wants to do it. Huh?
Wait till people see this interview. You're going to get mail.
Might get some female.
Okay. So now let me go back to 147.
We're accountable.
We're at 147. All right. That's where we ended the conversation at. All right. Now you can hear from Sean Connery's words. He says that he doesn't think slapping a woman is a bad thing. And the reason why he felt that it was okay to slap a woman is if you have, quote unquote, tried everything and the woman won't stop. then he doesn't think that slapping her is a bad thing, right? So when we relate it back to what Kevin said, we'll go back into what Kevin said. But what Kevin said is his wife Courtney over there, who was happy to be used as an example in this, can be on one. So he's married to a woman that he already knows can be on one and speak her mind or verbally kind of share what she's thinking and feeling. And what she's thinking and feeling when she expresses it verbally can sometimes come across as disrespectfully. All right. They both know that this is something that Courtney does. Okay. So let's go back to listening to what else Kevin said. Oh, you know what? Before we go back into listening to what Kevin said, because next he's gonna explain what Sean just said. Okay. Let's take a look at let's learn a little bit about who Sean Connery was. Okay, because Sean Connery is an old man, and Kevin is an old man too. So this is old man language, okay, that they talked about back in the 60s, right? But back in 2021, we don't know nothing about what they are talking about. And we don't even know these people. Like, we don't know Sean Connery. Like, put a 1 in the chat if you know Sean Connery's history before today, okay? But let's take a look at Sean Connery. A little bit about him. All right. So this is Sean Connery. It's my understanding he played James Bond, the first Bond man. And that is the James Bond 007 dude. And he, he was a ladies' man. He always wore a suit, like slick back, okay? He always was dressed to the nines and looking dapper, and all of the women were fawning over him like Slickback wants us to think of him, right? So when I really began to learn about the history of Connery, it made sense as to why Slickback would refer to him, okay? So it says, over the weekend, the celebrated actor Sean Connery died at age 90. As you might expect, the coverage of his passing has focused primarily on his prolific film career, his turn as the original James Bond, a veritable superstar of the big screen and heartthrob. But with Sean Connery, there's something else that is deeply uncomfortable to reconcile with his status as a beloved actor. Connery was known to physically abuse women, period. Listen, I'm going to repeat it. Connery was known to physically abuse women. His former wife, Australian actor Diane Salento, experienced a decade of physical and psychological abuse. Okay? This is written. Okay? This is a published article. Okay? During the course of their marriage and just weeks after a violent incident, Salento later described, Connery openly remarked in interviews about his proclivity to slap women who, quote unquote, deserved it. Okay? I don't think there is anything particularly wrong in hitting a woman, though I don't recommend you do it the same way that you hit a man, Connery said in a 1965 interview with Playboy magazine. Okay? An open-handed slap is justified if all other alternatives fail and there has been plenty of warning. If a woman is an itch or hysterical or bloody-minded continually, then I do it. Later, when questioned about these comments, he stood his ground, saying there are instances where hitting women is warranted. On Sunday, writer and anti-violence campaigner, mental health and gender equality advocate Tarang Chawla took to Twitter to address the issue of celebrating an icon who was known to perpetrate abuse against women. Okay? So I'm just going to scroll to the bottom. Y'all can read this. I'm going to go to another article. All right. Unless y'all want me to keep reading this article, y'all let me know if y'all want me to keep reading this article. Right? You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and keep reading it. People saying this isn't the time to talk about Sean Connery's history of domestic violence. Two things can simultaneously be true. A brilliant actor died who also happened to be a self-confessed perpetuator of domestic violence and an encourager and enabler of it. People are complicated. Sean Connery was too, but I won't pretend that his words about women and his actions toward them didn't matter. They did when he was alive, and they still do now that he's dead. There will be some, maybe even many, who say his death isn't the time to discuss the history of Connery's violence or his contemptible attitudes towards women. There will be some, again, maybe many, who may say his views reflect a different time, that it is unfair to judge a man's actions and words in the 1960s by the standards of 2020. But that is the very same paradigm that enabled Sean Connery to live and work totally untainted by any adverse consequences for abuse he perpetuated. Admittedly, I'm not a member of the generation of women who grew up with Sean Connery as film's leading man, but it was only yesterday that I learned of his problematic past. I imagine I was far from alone. Connery's fame and reputation were far bigger than his transgressions. His success was not thwarted in the slightest by his publicly stated preference for hitting women, and that's worth contemplating. For the message it sent to men and women then, and for the message it sends to men and women now. Because Sean Connery's particularly egregious comments about assaulting women were made in the 1960s to accommodate a talented or successful man's sins still prevails in 2020. Okay? Consider the man currently occupying the White House who was quickly forgiven in 2016 for comments caught on tape saying he likes to grab women by the wussy. We know that Sean Connery was permitted to inflict horror on women during the course of his life. So why are we not entitled to inflict scrutiny on him in death? If we decide men like Sean Connery deserve peace from criticism in death, why does a woman not deserve peace from violence and abuse in life? That's at the heart of it. Sean Connery's legacy ought to reflect the true picture of his life. He was a talented actor revered around the world who was known to abuse women. I just want to mention here that I laughed a little bit over the word wussy because I don't like, saying that word. It's hard for me to say that word. But I know when the British bombshell hears my video, she's gonna say, look, she's laughing. I'm not laughing about that. I just don't like saying words like that. All right, so let me go to another article. Let's see. All right. Sean Connery on slapping women, dangerous opinions, but a man of the time. Okay, this one is from Scotsman.com. Looking at the things he said, and it's been alleged, did we have to address the part he played in the greater gender imbalance? But to tar him entirely from the realities of a society of a different era would be in itself wrong. However, we do need to examine some painful truths that Sean Connery's admissions have forced us to face. All right. And then he goes into his quote where he says he thinks it's justified. Okay. Looking back with the eyes of today, Connery's comments are nothing short of jaw-dropping. Many, even at the time, found them hard to stomach. It was the first in a number of comments which earned the Edinburgh actor a reputation as a man who would be quick to raise his fists in anger against women. In Connery's eyes, he may only have spoken his mind on something he found perfectly normal, but sadly, at that time, he was far from alone in holding such opinions. The normality of misogyny in society in years gone by is very real. One only has to look at Connery's own turn as James Bond to find countless uncomfortable moments which helped shape the attitudes of the time. The stomach-turning love scene where Bond subdues and forces himself unto wussy galore is just one of the many cinematic moments of the time which encouraged the idea that women could and should be bent to the wills of men. But these were the ideas that went far beyond Connery's or even James Bond for that matter, Sean Connery or James Bond for that matter. The changes society has undergone in that time to make it almost unrecognizable now. But even as attitudes began to evolve, Connery was slow to catch up. Some 22 years later, he was interviewed for American television where his own words were thrown back at him, and he replied bluntly, "I haven't changed my opinion." That was 22 years later. He still believed that it was okay to slap a woman. He added, "I don't think it's good. I don't think it's that bad. I think it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it." It prompted watchers to ask what would merit it, to which he calmly returned, "If you've tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They want to have the last word." Words. His slapping a woman is merited by words, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right. From 1962 to 1973, Connery was married to Australian actress Diane Salento, who later claimed in her autobiography that he abused her physically and mentally, something the Bond actor denied. The allegations would later dog Connery when postponing an appearance at the Scottish Parliament, something which may have caused him to reflect on his stance. All right. It goes on to say that he later changed his stance in 2006 when he finally stated outright that hitting women is wrong. But by that time, his earlier comments were already embedded in public consciousness. For many, his newfound stance came far too late and did little to change public opinion. We may well look back and judge him harshly, and rightly so, but in doing so, we would also look back at the wider world at the time and be equally quick to condemn that which was very much a way of the time. All right? So this is actually why times change. If things were acceptable back then in the 60s, in 65 or whenever that comment was made, times have changed because attitudes have evolved and begun to see things as being wrong. And even Sean Connery himself evolved and saw things as wrong. Where he once thought hitting a woman was okay, in 2006 he finally admitted that hitting a woman was wrong. That was his stance. However, in 2021, Kevin has revitalized his words as a means to justify hitting a woman if she is being verbally disrespectful. Speaking to the concern of the person on the panel that asked him the question, okay? Speaking to that person's concern, Kevin revitalized or has given rebirth to Connery's words that he in 2006 said that he found to be wrong. Okay, I'm gonna go back into the video and then we'll finish up the video. It is almost time for me to go, so I'm gonna have to hurry and get through the rest, okay?
When the best course of action is to slap a woman. That's what Sean Connery said. It's still on YouTube right now. Go look at it. And Barbara Walters was like, thought he was going to recant his statement, and he doubled down. He said, let me explain what I mean. He's like, women have a way of not knowing how to let things go. You can give up the argument. You can let it go. They can know they've won. There's nothing else to be gained, and they will continue to push and push and push. And he said, at that point, once you've exhausted all other options, then a slap becomes a good option. And you only have to do it once. Shahrazad Ali tried to say that stuff, and it set the black community on fire. Why is this? Because between the men on this platform right now, if we were in public, we have.
Okay, so before we get into this next piece, Kevin has asserted that at some point a slap becomes a good option, as Connery stated. Okay. He also went back to reflect on Shahrazad Ali. Maybe I'll bring some clips about her and what she thought about. I think she referred to it as popping a woman in the mouth. I don't know. I don't want to misquote her. I don't want anybody saying that I'm like misleading her statements or whatever. So I'll get a video and put that up and let her speak for herself. Okay.
To moderate what we say, whether we know each other or not, because
okay, let me go back just a couple seconds because this is really important here.
Moderate what we say, whether we now, if we were in public, we have to moderate what we say, whether we know each other or not, because there's a low-level threat of violence and aggression between all men. Fuck YouTube, fuck degrees, fuck money. You cross a certain line with a man, we're gonna have to shoot the fair one. We know that. You can be in a wheelchair, you can be on a crutch, whatever. You can be special. You got to do that. But see, there's no low.
Okay. So what he says here is that between men, from one man to another, men know that when men become verbally disrespectful against another man, that he's gonna have to fight that man. Kevin referred to it as shoot the quick one or something, whatever he just said. You have to shoot the something, which means you're gonna have to, meet him with force, okay, for being verbally disrespectful. He says, forget the money, forget whatever it is, forget all of that. The fact that you've been verbally disrespected, you know that you have to see this man, okay? Regardless of whatever his position. He said, whether he's handicapped, whether he's in the wheelchair, whatever, like nothing matters. Once he's been verbally disrespected, once a man has been verbally disrespected, the disrespecting man knows that he's going to have to see him, right? There's a low level threat of violence, as Kevin phrased it, between men who disrespect one another.
Level threat of violence between women and men today. Okay, level threat of violence between women. Whatever. You can be special. You got to do that. But see, there's no low level threat of violence between women and men today. Women are allowed to be verbally disrespectful beyond the point of reason because there's no consequence.
Okay. So what he said is like men understand that there's a consequence that you're going to have to fight. Women know that women don't have that same understanding. Like women don't have that same threat or consequence for being verbally disrespectful. A woman believes that she can be verbally disrespectful to a man and not face a consequence. Or if you go back to that earlier term that he used, not be held accountable for being verbally disrespectful to a man.
Because they don't fear the repercussions.
It's 1 o'clock.
Okay, because they don't fear the repercussions, right? They don't fear violence from a man.
So listening to that, and this is why anybody familiar with the concept of domestic discipline?
So now we get into the conversation of domestic discipline. Everything before has been about domestic violence and why women don't have a consequence for being disrespectful to a man. And in handling a disrespectful woman, she ought to be met with the consequence like a man would be met with the consequence. Now, Slickback gets very, very strategic in switching the conversation now to domestic discipline. Now we are talking about a consensual act between two people, okay, where they have made an agreement between each other that where one is disrespectful, then the other one will reprimand them. But everything before that, including referencing Sean Connery, was an example of holding a woman accountable without her consent. Okay? It wasn't domestic discipline, it was domestic violence. It was the same domestic violence that Sean Connery's wife described having endured with him for, I think it was 10 years. Okay? So after we talk about domestic violence and we set the tone using an example of a person who has been documented as an abuser from his wife wrote her autobiography while he was still alive. She didn't wait until he died and quote unquote slander him. She wrote it while he was still alive, alleging that he domestically abused her. He was on camera saying that sometimes it's okay to slap a woman if she is being verbally abusive. Okay, that is that part. And now we're going into another part where he talks about domestic discipline, which is something very different than what Sean Connery spoke to. All right. So when we get into the promotion of domestic violence, like I said, if you know, then you know, and you know what you hear. Okay. You hear a person say, using another person's words, that it is okay to slap a woman in response to verbal disrespect. Okay. And now we get into the manipulation and conflating domestic abuse with domestic discipline, which is a consensual act. Okay.
No, domestic discipline in a nutshell is me and Courtney are married. And Courtney and I are vibing. But Courtney knows that she can get on one sometimes. And we sit down and say, when you get on one, and after we go through the process, and I use the safe word, banana split, and you still stay on one after I say banana split. You heard me say banana split. I acknowledge you heard me say banana split, and you stay on one. Well, then it's time for the domestic discipline. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Lay across the knee and on the ass. Thank you. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. And what I will do is I will put the links to the women who teach this stuff. And this has been talked about in sectors of the manosphere. It's adult correction.
I've never heard of that before in my entire life.
I hadn't heard of it until I got here on YouTube.
Okay. Now, what we spoke to, the concern that the initial speaker brought up was something regarding his sister, right? His sister and their family issues. And he talked about basically women being disrespectful, his sister included. He asked Kevin to speak to relationships, just interactions with women, period. Okay. How to, speak to women in general being disrespectful. In the beginning, Kevin spoke to how a slap would be a good option. And then in the middle of his statements or his conversation, he did the bait and switch. Thank you, Imuna, for giving me those words. Sometimes when I'm talking live or off the cuff like this, I'm thinking and talking at the same time and I just can't get it. But it's totally the bait and switch. We switch from non-consensual physical violence, domestic violence, into some consensual idea of BDSM that relates only to romantic couples, relationship couples, right? There's no way that you would do BDSM with a aunt or a sister or a mother or a cousin that is a woman that is verbally disrespectful. All right. I'm gonna let the rest of the video play.
But I'd heard of the concept, but I didn't hear it that way. And the thing is, it doesn't, and it's nonviolent. And here's the point. Can you imagine being a grown woman and you got to hear banana split and you know you should have stopped and you kept on going, and then you gotta, and you volunteer, and the woman has to volunteer for this. She volunteers to do this. It's not coerced, and it doesn't rise to the point of respect. Lay down, get the paddle out. All right now, Courtney, you know banana split. And you just think of the psychological thing. I'm like, I am 34 years old and I'm having to get swatted or hit with my hand. and who teaches this? Women teach other women. What was that woman's name? I'm gonna put her name down in the comment section. And I want you guys to understand the spirit in which you're saying, because this can get really misinterpreted.
Yeah, we get you. We adults.
But the thing is, the notion is that women know that the power of life and death resides in the tongue, and you use that instead of using it for our benefit, turning it against your men to the point to where you should not have to fear the venom that's potentially in the tongue of your women. Your enemy should have to fear that. Not. Okay,
now what we went back there was we did another bait and switch from the domestic discipline, the BDSM element, since they want to bring that into the conversation in an attempt to deflect and confuse the listener. We went from the BDSM element back into women in general, right? And women in general speaking disrespectfully without a consequence. Okay, so there you have it. All right. Anybody with common sense understand what they heard. I understand that a lot of you Kevin followers and supporters and stuff, y'all don't get it, or maybe y'all refuse to think critically. But when you know, right? And if you have any integrity within yourself, then you can stand up and say, now that I don't agree with. And you can say it boldly without saying, but women also women sometimes deserve to be hit, or women sometimes be too disrespectfully or be too disrespectful, or any other justification or excuse you can provide to make that those words or that behavior, those actions, okay, to make them justified, right? All right, so that's it. I'm gonna just drop the link for 1 second, just in case anybody has any questions real quick. I only got like 5 minutes, y'all. But I wanted to put the link out there just to give anybody watching an opportunity to say something, to respond to whatever it is that they might want to say or respond to before I close it down. Yeah, and he does have the right to feel however he feels, but when it comes to promoting it, that's the difference. When it comes to sharing it with his millions of subscribers, that's the difference. When it comes to specific, like targeting a specific audience or a specific demographic with those words, those opinions, those feelings that he has the right to, that's the difference. That's where the issue comes in at. All right. And I really would appreciate it if those of you who are supporters and followers of him would acknowledge that, right? Because it is so dishonest of you guys to continue speaking around that, or to continue justifying it. Just say that you don't think domestic abuse is wrong and that Black women being domestically abused is not an issue. Just say that. You don't have to keep defending it and talking around word salads and over here talking about who I am or how many subs on my channel, or my few people watching the chat. You don't have to keep trying to denigrate me and belittle me in order for you to stand on your own 10 toes, right? I think that's what Courtney said. Stand 10 toes down and say that you don't see a problem with domestic violence. Just say that. All right. That would be better than you accusing me of clout chasing when I heard what I heard and you heard what you heard too. All right. And when we talk about freedom of speech, when this whole thing first started, everybody wanted to say I was attacking his freedom of speech. There's a difference between freedom of speech and hate speech. All right. Whenever speech is loaded with threats or thoughts of violence and aimed at a specific demographic, it becomes something other than freedom of speech. And those hate speech laws were created to protect those people that may be on the opposite end of that freedom of speech, that may compel another person to act in a way that is undesirable against another. All right. There is no 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 conflation between freedom of speech and hate speech. Y'all are being dishonest and quote unquote disingenuous in this conversation. But like I've said many times before, you know, I'm not the decider. Okay. The petition is out there. We have 18,000 signatures so far. People are also wanting to promote and support the petition. And those people will decide. Okay. They have the final decision. The only thing I can do or I did was submit the petition, and those who supported it, supported, those who continue to support it. And people are going to make a decision on it. All right. That's what's going to happen. Hey, Jerome. Every time I see your name, I go crazy trying to read this name. All right. Is Atama Bill, Adam Bill? I don't know. One day you're going to have to get on the panel and tell me how to pronounce it. All right. Hey, mother. All right. So I got a couple more seconds. All right. Because I don't want to be too late getting my baby. I need to be there by 1:30. And she's going to say, Mom, why didn't you get me early? Okay. So I'll give y'all one more second to chime in, and then I'll be back with some more videos and stuff that I need to get out here. But I really wanted to reframe the conversation and kind of recenter us back to what we are, you know, talking about. We are not talking about my struggle channel. We're not talking about me struggle streaming. We're not talking about me saying, okay, which I am working on, because y'all know I was not prepared for all of this. And I'm nervous a little bit. But anyway, we're not talking about me saying okay or smacking my lips or whatever. We're talking about the promotion of domestic violence. And none of your deflection, the way that you conflate the two things, are going to like derail me from that point. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna give us until it says 1:14 on my clock, and then I'm gonna shut them down, and I'll be back in a little while once I get everything settled again, so we can have open panel. I did put the link out there for any of my head ties that are gonna say that I didn't give people a chance to speak. I gave you guys a chance to speak. All right, um, but yeah, I do have to run up out of here. Okay. So nobody is coming through. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down right now. Y'all subscribe to my channel. I'm not begging nobody to subscribe to my channel now. Now they say I'm clout chasing and everything, but on that change petition, I did not put my YouTube channel and ask for people to subscribe to me. So those people who signed that petition probably don't even know that I have a channel unless they do some research and look for me on YouTube or whatever. But I'm not soliciting subscribers, but if you would like to subscribe, please feel free to do so, and hit the notification bell. So that you can be notified when I go live again, and hopefully consider joining the panel, because I would like to hear you guys's your perspectives. All right, so it's time for me to go. I will see y'all later. Thanks for coming through. Bye.